All Americans must demand President Trump not start a war with Iran. According to Trump's possible 2020 election rival, 10 Democratic Party presidential candidates took part in the first of two back-to-back TV debates. Several slammed the Trump administration's foreign policy and aggression with Iran, including a former Iraq war veteran.
I served in the war in Iraq at the height of the war in 2005, a war that took over 4,000 of my brothers and sisters in uniforms' lives. The American people need to understand that this war with Iran would be far more devastating, far more costly than anything that we ever saw in Iraq. It would take many more lives. It would exacerbate the refugee crisis, and it wouldn't be just contained within Iran. This would turn into a regional war. This is why it's so important that every one of us, every single American, stand up and say no war with Iran.
Candidates also denounced President Trump's treatment of migrants and promised to reform what several described as an unfair economic system. The 10 other Democratic Party candidates, including Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, will take part in the Miami debate stage 2 tomorrow. We're going to get some more on this now. Joining me live is CNN reporter Karen Kafer in Miami. Karen, there were a couple of pretty tense moments in tonight's debate.
There were. You know, it was a reminder that these candidates aren't just competing with President Trump. They are competing with one another to see who will be the best suited to take on President Trump next November. So you did have some of those moments. It started off fairly quiet, but then once they got more comfortable with one another on that stage, you did see some more fiery exchanges on that topic of immigration between Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro, and the topic of the U.S. southern border. Also between Beto O'Rourke and Bill de Blasio about health care and private insurance, and also between Tulsi Gabbard and Representative Tim Ryan about U.S. engagement in Afghanistan. So certainly these candidates eager to show where they do have distinctions with one another and why their approach to this Democratic nomination and to challenging President Trump would be the best suited for next November. Stacey.
Now, we saw immigration and national security were the dominant issues of tonight. I guess there weren't any surprises there.
There weren't too many surprises in terms of the topics that were covered. They started off in the first hour with health care and the economy. And these are two issues that Democratic voters have said are going to be very important to them as they make their decision in the 2020 presidential race, both at the primary and general election level. And also two issues, and you can put immigration in that group as well, 2 or 3 issues that really factored into the Democratic success in taking back the U.S. House of Representatives in the 2018 midterm campaign. So there are Democrats who feel that campaigning on these issues are going to be absolutely essential. But it also, these are the kinds of issues that expose a rift that still exists within the Democratic Party as they choose whether they should take a more moderate approach to things like health care or whether they should take the more progressive approach. And that is a storyline that you're going to continue to see throughout this Democratic primary process. This is kind of a continuation of the debate that went on between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders in 2016 as to which direction the party should take. Bernie Sanders obviously still feels that the party should push a little bit further to the left and take on more of those progressive values. We heard Elizabeth Warren talk about that a little bit more tonight, as well as the New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. So in terms of choosing a course that they take to try to defeat President Trump, that's going to be a big part of how they choose their nominee. Stacey.
So this is the first debate of many, and it's a pretty wide field with 20 candidates taking part. Were there any standout contenders in tonight?
Well, we say 20 candidates. Those are only the ones that were eligible to compete in these debates. There are still 3 or 4 more that did not necessarily meet the threshold. But when it comes to standouts in tonight's debate, obviously Elizabeth Warren came in with the momentum here, and it was up to her to kind of maintain that standing. There's a lot of polls that have shown her either pulling even with or surpassing Bernie Sanders for that second place spot in the polls behind the front runner Joe Biden. She did what she came to do and will leave this debate just as well off or perhaps a little bit better positioned than she came in with. A lot of people here tonight are also talking about Julian Castro. If you have to pick someone coming from further in the back of the pack, the former HUD Secretary, Housing and Urban Development Secretary under President Obama, and the former mayor of San Antonio, Texas. He was someone who took advantage of the news cycle tonight and really used his expertise on immigration and that topic to his advantage, even kind of taking aim at Beto O'Rourke, the former Texas congressman, who needed to have a standout showing on the debate stage tonight. So Warren and Castro getting positive reviews. Also, Warren's two Senate colleagues, Amy Klobuchar and Cory Booker, also turning in solid performances, even if they've kind of failed to catch fire in the polls, Stacey.
So we know we have another debate tomorrow night, Karen, but what happens after that? When will this very long list start to be whittled down a little bit?
That's a really good question. The next round of debates will take place in Detroit at the end of July. The criteria for being included in those debates, the same as they were for this round of debates, meeting 1% threshold in these three major polls on this list, or having 65,000 unique donors spread out across at least 20 states. The threshold is the same for the July debates. It's only in September where the debate thresholds get a little bit more stringent, and that may be where you start to see this field winnow out just a little bit. There's really no downside to staying in at least until the July round of debates if these candidates are eligible, making a name for themselves, perhaps positioning themselves for another office higher than the one they are holding right now, getting a little bit more name recognition. It probably won't be until August or September when some of these candidates really start to see the writing on the wall and decide to abandon their bids.
Well, there's a lot to happen between now and then, Karen. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate the update.